My mom once threw a cup at my brother. Now she claimed it was an accident, but let's be real, my brother definitely deserved it. But this review isn't about sibling rivalry or flying kitchenware. Well, actually, it is, kind of. We're talking about Cup Killer. Okay, why is it called Cup Killer? Well, the enemies, they've got cups for heads. Yeah, and you're also armed with cups. And Thor's hammer for some reason. Visually, Cup Killer has an aesthetic that reminds me a lot of Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. It's got that same goofy, exaggerated vibe. For a Switch game, it looks decent enough, though it's far from pushing any boundaries. There's a single game mode. They call it sandbox, but don't let that fool you. It's more like horde mode from Gears of War rather than a true sandbox experience. The controls are surprisingly decent. They're fast and responsive, but hitting the bad guys can be a bit tricky thanks to their janky animations. Oddly enough, this actually works in the game's favor, making it more challenging and, dare I say it, more fun. The main goal is to survive while protecting this big crystal at the center of each map. Avoiding enemies? Well, that's easy, but keeping that crystal safe, that's where things get tough. One kind of interesting mechanic is that if you hit an enemy, they'll lose interest in the crystal and focus on you instead. So you end up running around like a maniac at the start of each wave, trying to tag every enemy at least once to keep them off your crystal. Oh, and when you hit an enemy, they lose whatever body part you hit, which leads to some amusingly ridiculous results. As you progress, you pick up gems of varying values to unlock new weapons and levels. There are only 6 weapons, each has its own effect, but the game's tagline, transform every object into a weapon, is a bit of a stretch. More like, use these 6 weapons as weapons. I've unlocked all but the chainsaw, but honestly I've seen enough and don't feel the need to grind it out to unlock it. Now there are 3 different levels, but I've only played 2. Again, I simply don't have the patience to get the gems to unlock the final level. I don't have that kind of time in my life to do the important things, let alone spend hours grinding in a $2 video game to unlock a chainsaw and some rando level. Cup Killer could have benefited from a few more features, like the ability to set traps or turrets, and additional game modes. These would have added some much needed variety. Despite its flaws, Cup Killer hits the basics. It has a simple, familiar premise, and the gameplay is straightforward. The controls, graphics, and sound are all adequate, making it fun in short bursts. For most people I would say, if you can snag Cup Killer on sale, it's worth the purchase. Especially if you're in the market for a cheap game to kill an hour or two. It doesn't have much replay value, but for the price, it's pretty hard to complain.